I am so glad to be here. I'm so excited. I've been really kind of learning this whole streaming game, and it's super fun. So you saw a little countdown timer. I hope that was helpful and prevented me from just kind of sitting here looking around, wondering when I should start. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to give you like a really thorough and full tour of magnetic stem blocks. I know a bunch of you have been asking for this and have been wondering when am I going to really get into all the different ways you can use these blocks. And I don't want to disappoint. I'm here to serve, so today is the day. For those who are just joining or new to the group, just a quick background. So my name is Patrick Greenwood. I got really passionately curious at first about early math. Excuse me, and my daughter, and okay, I know there's math in school, but if early childhood is so rich and there's so many synaptic connections happening as they develop, and if reading is important at 6 months, when do you start math, right? And what is that? What does that entail? And so I just dove into all this research, and there were a few things that really caught my eye. One was, a study. It's a famous study now. It's often cited by policymakers in early childhood, and of course, academic researchers. It's called Neurons to Neighborhoods. And I won't go into the whole thing, but it basically just is enforcing this notion that, that early, zero, actually even, prenatal, but zero up to, 5 and up to 8 even, what's happening in the brain and why is that important? And so that really caught my eye. And then I saw a study, and I mentioned this before, that talked about it followed these children, from pre-kindergarten all the way through to college, and they were trying to figure out, what qualities or maybe skills that these children have when they began kindergarten, and then what happened, later in life through their academic studies. And they found out that basically the children that knew the most about early math, I don't mean like crazy equations and in algebra and all that, but early math is it's counting, and it's number recognition, it's understanding how quantity works, it's shape recognition, it's spatial relations. It's a lot of really actually beautiful and fun things that make up this. So those children that had the most early math skills going into kindergarten did the best through college. They were the most likely to go to college and perform best in all areas. So that too, caught my eye. And the last thing was there's this thing called a negative math disposition. Now, some of you, when you took the poll, there were almost 50-50. There were the math lovers and the math haters, right? And a lot of that negative disposition, that would be the hate part, about math happens because, where all these different learning styles are thrown into the same sort of curriculum, and they're expected to be learning at the same pace, and oftentimes they didn't have an early math background in their childhood, and it was all very new to them, and they were just kind of rushed through, and they by age around 7 this negative disposition can set in. And so I was like, I want something different for my daughter, right? I want to give her this foundation so that she feels confident and can do well in math. That was basically my big gist. So long story short, that is how I developed these blocks, because what I found out was that manipulatives, hands-on, sensory, all these sort of things are really helpful, right? You don't take a 3 or 4 year old and throw them at some worksheets, right? They need to really explore. It needs to be open-ended. So that is the spirit behind these blocks. So let's get into it, and I'll give you a quick overview. Well, maybe not so quick. Okay, so some of you may have stem blocks, some of you may have seen them, and some of you may have never seen them before in your life. So I wanted to kind of go over them in a very broad view before we get into a lot of details. So quite simply, these blocks are made of rubber wood. They're made in Thailand. Rubber wood is it's a sustainable wood source because, as you see, you might have noticed in the background behind me, these trees are grown for the rubber sap, the latex sap that they produce. When they're done, 20 or so years, they're cut down, and they used to be burned. Well, no longer. This wood is being reclaimed and used in furniture and toys and other industries in Thailand. So that was important. I wanted something that was eco-friendly, and also resilient, and it feels nice too. I mean, it's these are well sanded. They're machined basically on a robot of sorts, and that's why they have this very very geometric, very precise shape, which helps them interact and work together. So these we have these trays. That's what I just had. We have trays in different quantities, starting from 1, up to 5, and then we have this big chunky piece. Now this piece, and I can go into this more in detail when we get into the activities. This piece, it acts as what's called a 10 frame in early math, and a 10 frame just is oftentimes it can be physical, but more often than not, it's a piece of paper with a grid on it, and children might have stickers, or they might be drawing in these different squares. And this grid of 10 begins to help children understand the relationships of the numbers that make up 10, right? Because this is important, because then we start using that same pattern when we're, say, thinking of a number in the 30s, it's 33, and we need to get to 40, we know it's 7, because we know that 3 and 7 make 10. So that's what these are for. This is really helpful for those types of activities. So again, I'll get into that a little bit more detail. So we have the trays. Then there are 8 cards, these activity prompts. One card kind of is an overview, and then the other ones are the different sort of activity suggestions or prompts. One is exploring weight and balance. This one is kind of more the STEM side, less the math side. So let's stick with the math first, and then we'll get to the other ones there. There we go. So one is subitizing. Subitizing just means when you're able to see a very small quantity and instantly know that it's it's 3 or 4 avocados in your cart without having to actually count them. That's called subitizing. That's a really good skill in early math, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail later. Stacking, of course. This is kind of more of the play aspect, a little bit less about math, except you can start to see as these are decreasing, right? We can have conversations with our children about, oh, isn't that interesting? This actually makes a stair. We can make a stair. This is making a triangle. So then counting the quantity cards, which I'll show you in just a second, taking away, and then spatial relations. And I talked about weight and balance a second ago. So those are the activity cards. Then we have the number cards. This is, I might have spoken about this before, but you might have heard me talk about concrete, pictorial, abstract. Well, this is, it's sort of the basis of the Singapore math program, but it also just goes into early, childhood psychology, which is that, and oftentimes even adult psychology, is that working with something concrete first, something that we can actually manipulate and examine. Then we sort of take that knowledge and move it into a pictorial representation. So now we're just sort of looking at a representation that's visual. And then finally abstract. So how that works with these cards is, let's just take, whatever, we'll take the number 3. Okay, so on this side is a shape, a pictorial shape that looks like this tray. Right, so one of the activities can be, as we're working with concrete, moving into the pictorial, is matching. Like, okay, let's see if we can match the card to the tray that it corresponds to, right? And that's going to also possibly prompt some counting, right? Counting the dots to make sure that we have the right one. And then the abstract piece is the fact that this symbol, right? This symbol means the quantity 3, the number 3. Yet it doesn't really look like what we were doing here, right? It's a little bit more abstract. I know that we used to do these kind of touch counting things. I recall this from when I was really younger, 1, 2, 3. But really, for a child, it doesn't look like this. This is the abstract representation of this concrete pictorial quantity. So those are our number cards. Okay, we have a couple operator cards. All right, we've got the plus and minus. Oops, plus and minus, and then the equals, not equals, same, not the same. These are, you may not want to introduce this to, your 4-year-old. This is sort of here to, I guess get them familiar with these symbols, and you can do some really fun things with these. But again, this is about play, so it's not about let's immediately start modeling equations because we think that's going to rocket them and propel them ahead. It's more about introducing these concepts in ways that are playful. And here's our equivalence, non-equivalence. So I'll show you in a minute. This one's actually probably one of the most fun, I think, and can be interesting to explore this notion. And it's a really important one, right? Because when we do get into later math, this notion of this side being equal to this side or not is something that is important. It's something that we evaluate. All right, so those are the operator cards that come with the kits. And then finally, let's talk about these shape cards. So I included these in here as something to subitize, right? So you can play a little mini game, which is, okay, tell me as fast as you can without counting, how many do you see? Well, let's do it together. All right, so how many? Right, you probably got that. You might have, cued off the triangular shape. You saw the 3, pardon me. On the other side is just another variation of 3. These are sort of more on what you see on a dice, right? The 3 is kind of in a diagonal. But these are just other ways to represent quantity, of course. So let's match the faces with the tray. Again, we're reinforcing and allowing them to explore counting, of course, but matching, understanding that really two of these relates to the same concept of two-ness, right? So that's what these little shape and face cards are all about. And then finally, there's this piece. So this is it's a card stand or a card tray for the activity cards. So this lets you, if you're setting up on the floor and you're playing, having a little play session together, you can slide that in there. Let's see, can you see that? So you can slide this in there basically, and it just, it makes it easy to see and to look at. So that's what that's all about. All right. Well, let's get into some of the things that you can do with the blocks that aren't really in these cards, and I'll give you a more complete, in-depth view of the blocks. So before we really get too deep into the math part or the numbers part, let's just talk about the way these are designed and built. Right? So they stack onto each other. Let's see if I can show this well. All right, so they stack. They also sort of hinge. So I've got this 2 tray here on top and making these 2 hinge. So, there's this kind of some early exploration of the way mechanics works. And also, you can put the 3 tray on there and it'll spin. Actually make this a little taller. Let's see if we can make this. That was unbalanced. That right there is a fun exploration, right? But yeah, so they spin. So that's kind of interesting and fun. Of course, the 3 tray spins, but if you look at the 4 tray, this is its own sort of exploration of early physics, right? It's like, oh, well, not only does it not spin very well, it wants to fall off. Why? I wonder why. And that right there, let's take a quick aside. That is what is so important when you're doing playful math, right? If you're playing with math, early math with your child, is to create that space for curiosity and wonder, right? Is rather than just give that answer, create the question. Like, I wonder why. How can we figure out, incorporate this notion of we-ness, that you're a team, that you're playing together, and you're both trying to discover this. This creates that space for your child to, one, not only use their own thinker, but they feel involved, right? They feel that their thoughts matter, and that is really, really critical. We don't just at 18 say, "Okay, kid, your thoughts matter now. Good luck," right? We really want to cultivate our little critical thinkers and our problem solvers. All right, so that's kind of the mechanical stuff about it. Oh, also one of the activities is stacking the trays this way. Now it's going to be hard for you to see, but I'm basically stacking them on end and exploring kind of what that's like. We can build a triangle type shape. Okay. So I'm going to get a little bit organized here. And let's talk about... Now, if you caught one of the earlier videos about one-to-one correspondence and cardinality, that is what's so helpful about these trays. One is that we have all these, different elementary quantities, right, 1 through 5. But when you're counting this one, okay, let's count. Let's put one in and count. Okay, that's 1. Here, I'll go your left to right. That's 1. Oh, that's 2. 3. 4. Yay, 4. And by nature of the fact that we've filled each of these sockets, that right there is the one-to-one correspondence piece, right? So we know we have things to fill, and we're saying a number word. So that really helps with that one-to-one correspondence. But also, finally, now we've filled the tray. We say 4, and this is 4. So that helps to create that skill of understanding that fourness is 4 things. And when I get done, I stop. And when I say that last number, that last number actually describes this whole thing I just created, right? Whether it be this, of course it could be, this. Naturally, they're not always going to be counting into the trays. They're going to move from that once they have that skill and be counting, anything. And hopefully they'll be interested in that idea of counting and quantity. Okay, so that's one-to-one correspondence and cardinality with these. Let's talk about why these trays work the way they do. So I'm going to take these out. When you stack a smaller tray on a bigger tray, you can immediately start making some observations. You can ask them like, oh, that's interesting. Like this one doesn't cover the whole thing. I wonder why, right? What are the observations that they make about that? And then that can lead to a conversation. And let's do a 3 and a 2. Oh, interesting. How many aren't covered by this one? Oh, it's 2. 1, 2. Oh, and then how many? What tray is this? Right? They'll begin to recognize just by subitizing that this is the 3 tray. Oh, it's the 3 tray. 3, right? So we're starting to kind of build up those notions that numbers are simply smaller numbers put together, right? Inside of that 5, we could say, is a 3 and a 2 in this case. Okay, so you might have noticed that there's brown dots on this side and no brown dots on this side. And also on the bits, this is what we call them. These are little bits. I thought it was a cute name for something that you might count. But the bits have a brown dot on one side and not on the other. So part of that in my early research was I was debating which side should go to which, and children were naturally wanting to have the brown dots be friends, right? So just that part was helpful, that they kind of oriented themselves and would eventually memorize that, right? They'll think about that. But of course, at first they may not do that, and they may put them in backwards. So that's totally fine too. In fact, it's a lot of fun. A lot of children I've seen playing with the blocks get a kick out of the fact that it keeps jumping out. But there's another more important purpose for these brown dots on the bits and the trays, and that is when you start this way. So no brown dots in the trays, and you put the bits in. Now we can do some really interesting stuff. So this is where you start to illustrate take away. And I'll show you that you can even illustrate sort of addition in a way like this. So if we take this 5 tray, we take our 3 tray, and we put it on top. We were doing this earlier. With the blocks in this orientation with the brown dots up, and you can say, ask your child, okay, well, pick up the 3 tray now. So what it does is, all in one go, it's like this, it takes those out. So when we had 5 and we took away 3, now we've got 2. So just by playing and exploring these blocks, children are starting to really just sort of visually and concretely experience elementary mathematical operations. And we don't even have, number cards out yet, or even operators, It's all through play and exploration. So if, let's do the same thing, but let's take our 2 and add it. Okay, let's get all our bits back in there. Okay, now we can put these end to end. The first thing we might do is compare and say, oh, interesting. Yep, there we go again. We've got a 3 and a 2 tray, 3 tray and a 2 tray, and they're the same length as the 5 tray, right? Interesting. Okay, let's count across. We haven't really touched on that, but counting across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is also another interesting exploration for them. But what we can do now is we can take this 5 and put it on top, and it just draws up all those bits, and now they're all on this side. Now we really did put 3 and 2 together and made a 5. So making numbers, playing with blocks and making numbers. This works with with all of them, right? We could do a 4 and a 1, for instance, to get that 5. All right, so there's that part. Now let's talk about, okay, so we've done addition and subtraction, concrete, play, but what about multiplication? Or what about division, right? So if we put a quantity of blocks out here, let's see, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. That's good. We'll do 9. Okay. What we can do, one of the most, I think, compelling and relatable explanations for division for our children is the idea of sharing fairly, right? We have, 3 friends over, and, everyone gets 2 cookies, right? No one friend gets 1 or none. So we have to divide those cookies up so that, each friend gets 2 or whatever. So that is, you can use stuffed animals for that. In your play with your blocks, you can put 3 friends out and say, okay, let's these are our cookies. Let's make sure all of our friends get 2 or whatever it is. But right now I'm going to use this 3 tray. We can use this 3 tray to start creating stacks, right? So this friend gets 3. Okay, this friend gets 3. Again, we're using that magnetic thing to kind of get them, slurp them all up, draw them in, and now we got 3 stacks of 3. So we took 9. We could have counted those. We got 9. Okay, this is what happens when we divide up our 9 cookies using our 3 tray, right? And then you get 3. Multiplication is sort of similar, right? And it's really this simple. It's like, what would happen if, you can say this, you can ask this to your child. So what do you think would happen if we, filled this 3 tray 4 times? Well, I don't know. Let's try it. Well, this is, that's 1 time. That's 2 times. So we can sort of count, oh, that's 2. That's 3 times. Okay, let's do it one more time. All right, that's 4 times. Wow, crazy. We just filled our 3 tray 4 times. How many do we have? Now we can count, right? We have 12. Well, let me tilt it this way so it's a little bit more apparent. You have your 3 tray stacked 4 times. It gets you 12. So there's, again, it's playfully exploring these concepts. At this age, we really just want to give them interesting experiences that are engaging and that, they sort of plant a seed about these concepts. Okay. Let's talk about the 10 tray. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier. There's this notion in elementary math called friends of 10. Right? So let's do this. Let's get these 2 out. Okay. Your child might already remember this is the 10 tray, or you might want to count. How many are in here? How many bits do we have in this tray? 10. Okay, 10. So there's our 10. Then we can, okay, let's say that, these are our 10 cookies and we want to, or our 10 pancakes, and I ate 2 and you ate 2. Right? So you're taking out 4. Okay, okay, so this is how many we ate. Okay, let's count. How many do we have left? All right, then we count. Can we find the card for that? So if we're already building up that numeral recognition skill, here it is right here. We can, find that card, or we could also, we could still be doing it here. We don't have to be moving into numeral recognition, which, by the way, is actually more of a skill that's akin to reading, right? Literacy, recognizing a numeral. It's kind of, working in that part of the brain more so than the quantitative part. But anyway, so we can use, the symbolic sides of the cards, or we can use the numeral sides. And now we're developing experience around this notion of 10 friends. 6 and 4 are 10 friends, and right. So how many do we have? We got 1 9, 1 9 2 8 3 7 5 5, and then the reverse of that, right? 6 4 7 3 8 2 9 1. So those are the 10 friends, and we can explore that notion. And this could be a 2-minute activity, a 3-minute activity. You can do it once and then come back to it later. It's the variety of different ways that you can, play with math and play with numbers with these blocks that's really important. Okay, and the last thing, as you probably guessed, if we use this side, give me a second to. So if we use this side, as I showed you before, with our bits with the brown spots up, we can use an actual tray and say, okay, cool, let's eat 4 of our pancakes. All right, those 4 are gone. How many pancakes do we have left, right? So now you got your 4 tray and your 4 and your 6. All right, how are we doing on time? We have 5 people. This is fantastic. Thank you so much for showing up. Can I hear in the comments, where are you watching from? Yeah, let me know. Tell me in the comments. Alrighty. So let me scoot back to my cam here for a minute. Okay, so let me talk about the kits. So we have 3 different kit sizes. This is the smallest kit. It has the trays for 1 through 4. All of these kits have the same cards. The same number cards and the same activity cards. So this is the smallest one. This is the one that retails for $49.99. Our middle kit is the 1 through 5. So trays 1 through 5. Hey, Alberta, Canada, Malaysia, Saskatchewan. Hey, thank you for joining. I love my Canadians, and I can't wait to go to Malaysia. So this is the mid kit. It has the trays for 1 through 5. Again, all the same cards. And then our biggest kit has everything that we've been playing with here today, which is the 1 through 5 and the big 10 piece. And again, all the cards, the card tray, and all that stuff. So I have some sort of good news, bad news. The good news, bad news is that we are... Hi, Carlene. Thanks for joining. I'm going to get your kit out that you won a couple weeks ago this week. It's been kind of nutty around here. But the good news, bad news is that at this point right now, I am completely sold out. And we are going to get more in probably sometime in the fall. It's not, I don't have a set date yet. But if anyone is interested, tell me in the comments if you'd be interested in, getting put on a wait list so you know when these are coming out and when you can purchase them. Okay, well, is there anything else? I mean, I play with these so much. There's so much fun, and I often even forget of some of the things that you can do with these blocks. Oh, let's do yeah, of course. How can I forget this? Okay, this is where we get into. This is not math. This is just straight up fun and engaging. Is playing with the power of the magnets. So let's see. It's even better the other way. One second. All right. So, going to the top. So I made this. Here, I'll tip it to the side a little bit. It's essentially, 3 tray, it's a little tower. And if you notice, the brown dots are up. That's because essentially the magnet is more powerful on this side than the other, and that's what makes the sort of magic trick of illustrating takeaway and and all that, make that happen. So if you have them with the brown dots up, and you take another bit, let's get this more centered. You can explore with your child the opposite polarity and how magnets push apart, and you can use that block to make this 3-tray spin. And this is something that might take your child a little bit of exploring, and they might come back to it later. But eventually, as they're working on that fine motor, you can get this thing whipping around pretty good. So that's really interesting and fun. I love showing that, and I'm glad that I remembered it. I'll play a little bit more with what's essentially like the mechanics, right? So you can make kind of a interesting, what's called a trapezoidal truss, but if you look at this, if you put these in here this way, right? They orientate in a regular rectangular grid, like a square grid, but then they also, when they interlock, it's a triangular grid, right? And that's intentional. It's just to give lots of sort of compelling, interesting ways to play with the blocks when you're not working on math and numbers. You're kind of working more on exploring elementary physics and mechanics. So I can use this one to actually make the whole thing move. And kind of make it turn into a little walker. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I hope that I gave you a much clearer sense of why these blocks are so versatile and all the things that you can do with them. And I hope that please let me know if you want to join a wait list to know when we get back in stock. I can't believe that right when I started these live videos, we ran out. But luckily we just picked up a new partner in Singapore, which I'm really excited about. And they decided they wanted pretty much what we had left. With the exception of another chunk, I will say we are donating probably, close to 100 kits. But a big part of my mission here at Contu, beyond serving families and children through our products as our customers, is to also give back. And so I'm working with Denver Preschool Organization, and they're doing some summer programs. It's actually literacy, but they're going to bring the blocks in and throw in a little bit of early math in there too, which is really cool. So I'm pumped about that. Alrighty, so thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to be connecting with you like this. Thanks for showing up in the comments. Oh yes, I'm so glad that you said that. I am out of stock, but the world is not out of stock. There are actually, U.S. and Canadian retailers who do have these blocks in stock. Thank you so much, Danyanides, and I'm sure I just butchered your name. I'm so sorry. But yes, and you can go on to our website. If you click on the menu and look at Store Locator, you can find places where they're either in brick and mortar toy stores or online. It's not completely complete, but I'm going to actually update that in the next day or so, considering that we're out of stock. I want to make sure that people can find every place that they can buy these blocks. So thank you so much. Yay, Kendall wants to be on the wait list. Thank you so much. Oh, well, yeah, the extension pack cards. Hi, Ling, I just saw that. The extension pack cards. Well, since we're still live, I'll go grab them. Hold on. All right. Ling wanted to know about the extension pack, the expansion pack cards, which are right here. So what I wanted to include, and I didn't include in the first round, were a couple more operators. If you wanted to start exploring fractions and also greater than, less than. And we also go numbers all the way up to 20. So, we've got the team numbers. And what that looks like on the back is, we have team numbers. So that ends up being two 10 trays, right? To make 20, because we don't have a 20 tray. So the team numbers just give you, more, I mean, we're just moving into teens, right? And more ways to understand the way that we make up those numbers. Also, what are in here are, again, we have the same shape cards, but we have two new operator cards. One is division. So, if your child is ready and interested and actually, throwing down actually modeling an equation, right? I'm trying to find 9. There it is, 9, right? 9 divided by 3, you have your 9. You take your 3 tray and you can run through that. I'm kind of skipping through this quickly because I'm not quite that prepared, but I'm glad that you spoke up, Ling. Thank you. On the other side is multiplication. So kind of like we did when let's stack the 3 tray 4 times or 3 times. You can then also lay that out with cards. And then over here is kind of a slash, which we can use for fractions, and I'll show you. And then greater than, less than. I'm glad we're doing this because I forgot to talk about equivalence. And these two would work really well together. So the first thing you can do is you can use trays to start, right? And you can say, this means not the same, right? Is this? How many over here? Oh, 3. Oh, count how many we have here. Oh, 4. Oh, is 4 the same as 3? No, you're right. 4 is not the same as 3. So this means not the same. But what if I put a 3 and a 1? Now, how many do we have over here? Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, and 4. Okay, yeah, we have. Is 4 the same as 4? Yes, right. You're gonna get that yes. This means the same, right? So we have 4 on this side and 4 on this side. Let me clean this up a little bit. Right? So you can use that, and you don't have to use the trays, of course, right? I mean, you can just be talking about bits. One of the games I like to play with my daughter is when we're playing this equivalence game or the same as game, I could say, are they the same? Yes. Okay. So I would ask Violet, I would say, okay, I want you to turn this card and make sure that this card is placed correctly. So, and I put, I might slide in one over here. Okay, what do you do with the card? And she would look, oh, okay, they're not the same, right? Or I could say, okay, what will we need to do to make them the same? And then, let her puzzle it out. And oftentimes she'll either add 1 over here. Oh, okay, that did it. Or she might take away 1 over here. So what's nice is you're using the manipulatives, you're using concrete objects, but you're starting to model this notion that we can compare, right? And that comparing of quantity has a meaning, and we have a symbol that represents that. I mean, you can use this with anything. I mean, I could be, using these 3 little green trees, and right? But often when we're really starting out, and this is a really important thing to call out, okay? Whether you buy these blocks or you buy some other manipulative, to start building the counting skill, it's important that the object that they're counting, especially in the early days when they're at the beginning phases of this skill, that these objects look the same. You don't want them to be a bunch of different colors or a bunch of different sizes yet. After they get really strong in that counting skill, they can kind of weed out that extra sensory information of, oh, I'm seeing like 4 different colors, and that's kind of throwing me in their different objects. Eventually, they'll just really get it down that I'm counting objects. But in the beginning, it's important that you're using objects that look the same and they're not a bunch of different colors, because that's then they're really just focused on quantity, and they're not getting kind of thrown by these other signals that are different about the objects. So going back to here, it's very similar, right? This, you guys might remember, I remember being taught that, this was an alligator and the alligator liked to eat the bigger side, right? So you can use that analogy or not, but we can, begin to kind of play with this. You can use stuffed animals, which, I've got 3 over here and 2 over here, which one's the bigger number, and you can, turn the card there. So that's what that's for. Finally, let's talk about about fractions. This is one way, of course, right, to represent fractions. It's not the most common. A more common way is with the sort of pie chart thing that we're used to seeing. But it's good that our children experience this notion of parts and whole in many different ways. So with stem blocks, it looks like this. You could say, okay, how many do we have in the 4 tray? Well, we only have 1. So we have 1 out of 4. Then that's kind of where this comes into play, is that you can. Let's say you were cooking and they got curious about why is there that 1 and a 4 on the quarter cup, right? Well, then you have another way to model that with them, and that is with this. Just trying to find my 1, right? So that is, we have 1 out of the 4 tray. You could do it this way too. All right, Ling, I'm so glad that you piped in so that I got a chance to show those. These extra cards. I didn't put them in the kits originally. I came up with, I really wanted to add these other cards in there and also team numbers. So we just added it as an add-on. The add-on, if you buy the cards, it's 30 cards, and it comes in a little cotton bag, not a little storage bag. Those were not out of stock on our site. But those are only available on our site. We don't have those in other retailers because it was kind of a test this year. All right. Well, I feel like I've given you a pretty complete rundown and exploration of the blocks. Once you get these, and if you have these, you'll notice. Okay, yes, there are these sort of specific activities and prompts that we can use with our children, but they're really versatile and they're really interesting. They're really fun. Here's an activity that I have never really talked about much, which is this notion of, let's say we have a little Lego person or a peg doll, and the challenge is, okay, well our peg doll is down here and wants to get up to the top, and you can play together to figure out a strategy. That what would we have to put in the middle so that that our little peg doll could get here, and right? It's that you're building a stair, and you can explore about, okay, what is a stair? What makes a stair? Oh, well, this has 1, this has 2. Oh, this is 1 bigger. All right, then you make your 3, and you're making your step. But it's important to kind of look at that and ask questions and have them observe. What makes a stair? Stairs are also really great gross motor things to count, right? When you're going home, you're wherever you're leaving the house or inside the house. Let's count the steps, and incorporating that gross motor is another fun and engaging way to explore math. So I want to emphasize that I created these blocks to be a fun material, a fun toy that had a lot of possibility. But our children need as many varied experiences, in their lives. They're hungry for us to share these different experiences. So that's why, if you're ready to deal with the myths, right, is cook with your child, like make some cookies and talk about as you're measuring. Oh, that's interesting. We have a cup of this and a quarter cup of this, and just having those experiences where they can see, when you're taking them shopping, and have them help you get 3 apples, right, and put them in the cart. Just incorporating, this early math and counting and comparing into as many experiences as you can. All right. Well, I think I am well and truly done and through. I hope that you enjoyed this again, and thanks for sticking around for this little aside. And thank you so much, everyone, for showing up. And I will share with you guys a way to get on a wait list. I'm going to set that up pretty soon. But if you don't want to wait, go to the website, check out the store locator, and hopefully you can find some blocks either online or in a store near you. All right. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.